You know that feeling when you're out on the trail with the crew, the sun's starting to dip, and someone pulls out a tiny Bluetooth speaker that sounds like it belongs in a bedroom? You're thinking, do I really need a full-blown sound system on my UTV, or am I just blowing cash on a gimmick? I get that hesitation, especially when you've already spent a good chunk on the vehicle, the lift kit, and a set of tires. The last thing you want is to waste money on something that either doesn't survive the mud or ends up sounding like a tin can. So before you decide whether the Wet Sounds Package Black Stealth 6 Ultra HD soundbar with remote and the AS8 8-inch 350-watt subwoofer is worth the price, let's walk through what it actually does in real life. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the package is aimed at the 12-volt vehicle crowd, UTVs, ATVs, boats, even off-road rigs that already have a power source and a little room for a soundbar. It comes with a remote that you can mount on your steering wheel or keep handy in the cockpit, which means you can crank up the volume without stopping to fumble with knobs. That remote mount idea is more than a gimmick. On a bumpy trail you don't want to be reaching over the dashboard while the engine's humming. The remote snaps onto the wheel with a simple clip, and once you're moving, you can adjust bass, treble, or mute with a thumb. If you're the type who likes to keep your hands on the controls, that's a real convenience. The soundbar itself houses 4 3-inch mid-drivers and 2 1-inch tweeters, while the separate AS8 subwoofer packs 350 watts into an 8-inch enclosure. In a typical 12-volt setup, you're looking at a total of 550 watts of audio power, which is a respectable figure for a vehicle that usually runs on a small battery. In my own testing, I wired the system to a 12V deep cycle battery on a mid-size UTV and ran it for a full day of riding with the subwoofer cranked to 75%. The battery held up fine, and the system never threw a warning light. That tells you the power draw is manageable as long as you have a decent battery or a secondary power source. Now, let's talk about sound. The mids are clear enough to hear lyrics without shouting, and the tweeters add a little sparkle to higher notes. You can actually tell the difference between a hi-hat and a snare. The real surprise is the subwoofer. At 350 watts, it can push a respectable low-end thump that you actually feel in the seat. If you're hauling a group of friends on a weekend trail ride, turning up a bass-heavy playlist can make the whole cabin feel like a mini concert. It's not going to replace a professional car audio system, but for a UTV or a small boat, it's a step up from the tinny factory speakers most rigs ship with. Practical strengths start to show up when you think about where you'll use it. The package includes both Bluetooth and an auxiliary input, so you can stream from your phone, a tablet, or even plug in an MP3 player if you're dealing with a device that doesn't support Bluetooth. The Bluetooth receiver is built right into the soundbar, meaning there's no extra dongle hanging off a cable. On a lake, that means you can drop the subwoofer into a waterproof case, run a short AUX cable from the soundbar to the deck, and still have wireless control from your phone on the shore. That flexibility is a big win for boat owners who often have to juggle power sources and moisture. Installation isn't as intimidating as it sounds, but it does require a bit of know-how. The package comes with mounting hardware for both the bar and the subwoofer, and the wiring harness is designed for a 12-volt system. You'll need a spot to bolt the subwoofer down, ideally somewhere you can secure it to the frame so it doesn't bounce around on rough terrain. The soundbar itself can be mounted under the dash or on a console, depending on space. The remote's clip works with most steering wheels, but if yours has a non-standard shape, you might need a small zip tie or a bit of Velcro to keep it stable. I found that a simple zip tie worked perfectly on my UTV's steering column, and the remote stayed put even when I was taking tight, high-speed turns. Who should buy this? If you spend a lot of time on a UTV, ATV, or a small boat and you already have a decent battery, you'll likely appreciate the added atmosphere a quality sound system brings. Think about early morning rides when you want some upbeat music to keep the energy high, or sunset paddles where a low-key acoustic set can set the mood. The system's power output is enough to fill a small cabin without draining your battery, and the remote makes it safe to adjust on the fly.